Stay dry.
That's cruel. Should be penalized for that.
If anybody ever tells me, read the room, I'm gonna punch him.
You're gonna have to dig a pond for your sliders in your backyard now. And take all the misfit releases.
How about sending them back to where they're native? Where are they native?
Some places.
Stephanie, can you hear us? Oh, there we go. Hold on. You just moved. Paul, can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, there's Paul. You're muted. Paul.
You're muted, but you're moving, which is good. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Just froze up for like 30 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So item number one is the Sally Laughlin Award presentation. It will be at noon at the Dead Creek Wildlife Management Area headquarters on Dead Creek Day, which is, I didn't write that down, did I? The 7th of October. It will be awarded to Bill Kilpatrick. And he can attend, which is great. So, yeah. And I think this is, if it's somebody who's involved with our committee, either a SAG chair or somebody, I don't think it can't be an Endangered Species Committee member, but if it's someone on a SAG chair, it gets a little complicated in terms of like asking, hey, do you think you're going to Dead Creek Days this year? But I really like the idea of having the awardee known in advance. I mean, I think it just makes a lot of sense, especially if you want to do some publicity around it. So, yeah.
And Maggie Gendron seemed to be all over that, but
Okay.
I don't know if she's communicating with you or if I need to go back to her. And I mean, I want to make sure that continues, but I don't
Okay.
know if there's somebody else coordinating that or.
No, there
I mean, reach out to her and
yeah,
check in with her.
sure. Yeah. And you can copy me and we can connect. I was going to say there is a possibility I may not be able to make it. I'm hoping I can, but is anyone on the ESC? Oh, we got somebody in the lobby apparently. I don't know if there is somebody who
It is what day was it?
7th of October.
Okay. Make that.
I'll be there, but I'm not
Yeah.
on the ESC and I'm
Yeah.
site chairing now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Could
Okay.
somebody
keep it-
joined who's conservation guest?
Hello,
Conservation class.
yes. Is this a public meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We are from Vermont State Johnson. This is my conservation field experience class. Happened to see this meeting was happening and we just wanted to view for a minute what's going on. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think if you can connect me with Maggie, we can talk about it. I don't know if the secretary was able to be there or not, or if Maggie would present again this year. But we can get our ducks in a row and go from there. So,
Okay.
Yep.
I think one of the real benefits of getting this information out up front is that those people who specifically want to honor Bill
Yeah.
can be there.
Right.
And in the past,
Mhm.
There was whoever was hanging around.
Right.
At that particular time, and
Yeah.
5 or 6 people walking through.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think it was tremendous advantage to
Mhm.
get some PR out about Bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be, the date wasn't there. Oh, yeah.
But I think we have all the info for a press release, right? I mean, if we want, to get something out in advance, so. that'd be
Yeah, Maggie
great.
seemed really interested in
Yeah.
that, and it's also, it's the A&R, it's a secretary's award, so
Yeah.
I think she was gonna coordinate
Okay.
actually having something to present at the time, so.
That's
I'll
great.
check in with her
Yeah.
about it.
Okay,
And then,
Awesome.
well, as
Thanks,
far
Roy.
as UVM people, will you get the word out? There might be folks from,
Yeah. Yeah.
those of us that are still around that took his
Yeah.
class way back when
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. I'll try to mention it to others as well.
Mhm. Great. All right, well, conservation class. One of the things that the Endangered Species Committee does is makes decisions on species that should be added or removed from the endangered species list, endangered or species in the state of Vermont. And so next on the agenda is a proposal to actually delist the species of horsetail. And so I'm gonna turn it over to a member of our Flora Scientific Advisory Group, which is where that proposal came from.
Yeah, I know.
And Art can present.
I
have the documents here.
I've got the documents. If you want, like, I don't know if anybody needs to see them on the screen or not.
I would not be the one to do that.
Probably Rod. Nor me. Okay. Well, I presume everyone has looked at them, understands the basic story. So Equisena palustri was historically considered to be a rare plant in Vermont. And when the list was developed in 1987, it was included on the list. Without a lot of, with as much review as they could give it at the time, right? Some old historical collections, mostly from northern Lake Champlain and Rutland area. And I think there might have been another one on the eastern side of the state. Since then, it's been found more commonly along the shores of Lake Champlain. And I personally found it a couple places along the Connecticut River shore where it's hard to recognize because the form of the plant is changed by being exposed to flowing water, right? So instead of sort of like large, robust plants, they're sort of wimpy little plants, but they're extensive because they're long-lived perennials. They grow rhizomatously through the ground and can, form enormous clones. I've had a lot of experience in the past 15 years with the population associated with the Barton Solar project that got an endangered species permit through the committee and the state to install solar panels over a population. The population was in a wet field, that had a lot of disturbance at the time they built I-91 nearby. So I think there was a lot of topsoil stripped off that field, and the field became an extensive population there. So as part of the permit application and the negotiations to get the permit, Bob was worried that they would be shaded out by the panels. So we instituted a long-term study. They were able to put the panels in, impacted a few plants, about under 30 plants, direct impact, and then a long-term study to determine whether shade was problematic for them. And it turns out that shade is not problematic to them. The most important part is that the air is maintained as wet. There's enough ambient light. And of course, the panels are in strips. So for a while, there's a strip of sunshine and a strip of shade. And which sort of moves back and forth according to height of the sun. But there's enough ambient light that they did quite well. I monitored them every year for the past 9 years. And they have really done pretty well. The numbers have fluctuated up and down, but are quite robust. We studied 20 plots, counted every stem every year, and the graph does go up and down, but obviously they're doing well underneath the panels, and they have a 15th of September mowing date that the plants can't be mowed earlier because it's like a hay field, you know. It's pretty wet, so there's a lot of wetland grasses underneath, and the horsetails grow up through the grasses perfectly well. A very interesting part of the situation is that the solar project has had some difficulties because the soil being wet, the posts are heaving.
Oh,
So the situation is under litigation now as to who's responsible for that. And but because of that potential litigation and the need for a new permit to address maybe revamping the project, we did a study 2 years ago, fall of 2021, where we counted. We didn't count every stem on the whole field, but we mapped the location of every post and any plants within 3 feet of every post. And we have basically widely extended the area that they occupy. In other words, in the last 9 years, the plants have grown out from where they were before. And at that time, just in those very limited areas, we counted about 2,500 stems. And it also occupies another piece of land to the north, which is under a big high tension power line, which is an unmowed field. And that field is full of this. So this is in the Barton River complex. And studying the Barton River area, we see that not many, there are extensive sections of roadside ditch that are occupied by marsh horsetail, sort of maintained by the ditching. And so every so often the town comes along and ditches it out, which would be a taking, but it promotes the species. There's also, if people are familiar with the runaway pond roadside rest stop up there in the town of Glover, where the pond was breached in 1840 and drained the entire pond and flooded the town of Glover. There's a roadside way area that has got a beautiful meadow right there that is filled, has a big population there, which gets mowed every summer, which would be a taking. But it maintains the population well. So with this idea that it's a robust plant, does well with major disturbance like roadside ditching, and I think probably flood events scattered along Lake Champlain and the Barton River and the Connecticut River. And there's, other additional smaller localities where it is found, that it really doesn't really need the level of protection that the Endangered Species Law has given it. I think especially because it does seem to very well tolerate normal activities that need to be done for the roadsides and so forth. So we did have a vote of the Flora Advisory group and the floor advisory group recommended. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, Art put together the species documentation and supplemental information that you've all had a chance to review, I think. And as you can see in that species documentation form, it doesn't meet any of our current criteria for listing as either endangered or threatened. So that combined with just, what Art's explained, knowing that it's relatively tolerant of significant disturbances and we have large population numbers and so forth, we all felt comfortable and it was a unanimous vote to recommend delisting. Happy to, I don't know, answer other questions or go into more of the details of, just how many sites we have and that sort of thing, if folks want to explore that further.
Which you also should have at that supplemental document that you
Yeah, I
put together.
provided
So,
a really nice
yeah.
listing. I think
Yeah.
that's pretty up to date and comprehensive.
I think so.
I couldn't think of any others that I've found
Right.
recently or anything that weren't included. So
Yeah.
I think there were something like 38 different element occurrences between extant and historical.
It's sort of hard to, without walking the entirety of the Barton River,
Yeah,
because, it's known downstream by the railroad yards in Newport City.
mhm.
It's probably scattered all along the length of the Barton River.
Yeah, it seems like we've been somewhat steadily having new reports, new sites crop up in recent years too. So that list of sites would probably continue.
Are you recommending a change in the S rank as well? I mean, is it something like S, I'm unfamiliar with it, but.
I think it's
going from
S3.
S1 to S3 or S2 to.
I think we probably kept it at S2, S3, simply because we've typically felt it would be a little bit bizarre to have an S3 species listed as threatened or endangered. And so when we've run into this situation, we've tended to sort of edge by keeping it at that split rank. I'm not sure if we didn't specifically discuss.
I don't recall.
Weren't re-ranking to S3. I think it's kind of at that cusp. I mean, if we have something like 25 extant populations, that we could consider that S3 uncommon rather than rare, but we haven't had that discussion specifically.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend delisting Equisetum palustri.
I will second. I do have one comment, which is when we push this forward, I think what the process has been is we've asked for sort of a short abstract or executive summary to go along with this. So, I mean, it's kind of all here. I think you can do a cut and paste, but, just something that, is like proposal to delist Equisetum palustri and just some of the highlights of the document to add on there. And then we can.
So you'd like that to present to the secretary?
Right, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Is that something you would want to put together? Art? That would be
No
great.
problem.
Yeah, and I'm happy to contribute or look it over. If you'd
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Like I said, I think all the information's in here. I don't think you need to really write anything additional, so. Any other comments, questions?
Always nice to see species come off the list. So, a nod to that and to the process to not only put things on, but to
It doesn't,
document and.
it doesn't do the entirety of the endangered species protection to have things that don't really need it.
Yeah,
Right.
very much agreed. Yeah.
Yep. Even though we can't necessarily claim we've recovered.
Yeah.
Right, we didn't really particularly do
Yeah.
anything to help this one, but it's on its own.
Well, it's not many people take much notice of horsetails, believe me. There's not a cadre of people out.
But on the SAG a couple of years ago, we were thinking of nominating Purple Martin. And before we did that, we did there was a survey set up and we collected the information and realized we didn't really need to do that. So these are all wheels that are working in the process of, putting things on and taking things off. And the idea that once it's on there, it can come off.
Yeah.
The data supports that.
Yeah, I just want to add, that was a great report you folks did, really thorough and totally convincing. So good job.
Yeah. And credit all goes to Art there. He did it all the way.
I have had the ulterior motive of not having to monitor. Well, especially because it meant being underneath the solar panels and every time I stood up straight.
Yeah, you don't need Art having any concussions.
We're glad you're still with us, Art.
Yeah, scarred.
So after 9 years, Art, you never figured out that maybe you should bring like a football helmet or something?
Oh, man.
We eventually learned that hard hats are required on the turn island, so.
Thanks.
All right, all those in favor of delisting Equisetum palustre signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Fish and Wildlife
Okay,
abstains.
Yep, as does Ag.
Mhm.
Okay, I think now we are right back on time. So I was, our,
Oh, Alan, can I put us back off on time? I just had, there was a question about mussels in the flooding and I
oh,
emailed Mark Ferguson and got a
Okay.
response if people
yeah.
want to hear.
Yeah.
sure.
So he says he hasn't assessed any known mussel beds since the flood. He expects there'll be impacts, particularly due to sediment movement. Scour can wash mussels away. I have this written down, so you don't have to write it. Can wash mussels away to unknown fate. And over 12 years ago, heavy rains caused a large slug of sand to wash into the upper Winooski in the Marshfield area. And it slowly moved downstream over a year or more, killing eastern pearl shell along the way. The July event this year was more extreme. We met watershed, if anybody's driven by there.
Yeah.
And could have similar impacts along with Scour. We've seen large events wash out mussels that were being monitored following development-related relocation in lower sections of Lake Champlain tributaries.
Yeah. Okay.
Data, but not a promising scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that.
Oh, no, that's
People would want to
fine.
hear.
Yeah, I just thought we'd take a few minutes to, if folks have agenda items they'd like to put on the January meeting. It is usually the annual reports of the SAG, so that takes a decent chunk of time. But if there's other things that people would like to see discussed, that'd be great.
I think a potential could be the wildlife action plan. I wanted to just bring up that John Cart's getting, having a lot of conversations, getting that process started. We're going to start up with a steering committee. We're going to just start with the Fish and Wildlife Division program managers and then see who else to add from there. Hopefully in the next, I don't remember, the meeting's coming up soon. So just a heads up for those of you on SAGs that, we'll be looking to engage folks in the input process. There's a lot of thinking about emphasizing more landscape scale conservation, given climate change, given flooding events, all those sort of landscape scale impacts we're seeing. Still do the SGCN updates, but we're hoping people aren't going to have to sink a lot of time into those. Those can be very intensive and we don't want people to sink too much time into those. So we have time to think about these bigger scale issues going on. So that's these are just the conversations and we'll be looking for input from everyone and anyone who's willing to give it. So we have to set up a steering committee and set up the usual taxa teams and see what else might make sense. So stay tuned. So that might be, we might be ready for more of a real update by
Yeah.
January, I hope.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that's just an update and not an agenda item.
Mhm.
Be the rough time frame for the SGCN list updates. Just thinking, I know bryophytes with the new bryophat SAG.
Yeah, they might have more work.
Yeah, I know it's one of our primary agenda items, but it
Yeah.
will take a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's due at the end of 2025, the completed
We've
plan.
got a little.
So there is time. I don't wanna, I mean.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can burn up a few meetings pretty easily, so,
Right.
yeah, so, I mean, I think you already know what you all need to do, or maybe you can start talking about that. You don't need to wait for us to get everything else going, right? So.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've already been talking about what processes would for bryophytes. We can't just sort of cookie cutter take the same process that we've used for vascular plants. So we're
Yeah.
sort of trying to hash out
What'll it look
what
like?
approach we're going to use.
Okay, great.
In updates, but
Yeah, and I think
do that.
prior to COVID, the bird SAG had started working on going through the big list with a big piece of paper out on the table, talking about, I think we were talking in terms of the conservation design.
Yeah,
And going through that process. And I'm assuming probably not in the fall agenda because we have other stuff, but in our spring agenda, we will probably have time to potentially take that on. Who's the point for that?
I guess that would be,
Okay.
yeah, me and or Bob Zano. I mean, he
Bob
got
was the
started.
one,
you
Bob
guys.
was the one that was with us. I mean, that's
Yeah.
4 years ago now that we were starting.
So,
to
and
do
that's sort of I mean, it's related, but separate process from, that was, the purpose of that, I believe, was to figure out where is Vermont conservation design not adequately covering
that. Okay.
priority bird species? Like, are there gaps?
Right.
And identifying those. So it's up to the SAG whether that they find that useful, and they might, because VCD is increasingly being used as this background for conservation planning. Like
Right.
Act 59 is now going to be
Right.
using VCD as the, the guide. So I think it might be worthwhile to.
Yeah, I'd like
complete it.
to.
I don't know how far you have to go, but.
We got halfway through. We set up a special meeting to
Yeah.
just deal
Yeah.
with that particular thing. So maybe that's the same approach. And I think the way that Steve and Eric and Bob were looking at it is the bird SAG was the kind of the first one out to try that process. So I don't know if they're still thinking that process is what they would like to maybe see some of the other SAGs undertake.
Yeah, and I think that's something for the SAGs to decide, really, because if VCD is going to continue to be used as the model, as the guide, we want to make sure there aren't any species that are missing from that. Right. So it's up to whether the SAGs think that would be an important thing to do. I think VCD will be featured more in this. I mean, I'm just talking. I don't know. We haven't really decided anything yet, but I think it'll be a big feature of this wildlife action plan, just because it's of the role it's going to play now in conservation planning for land protection. And
Okay.
so,
And for those that are listening with the class, are they still on?
no, they left.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna explain what
We're
a
gonna have
SAG
to
was.
explain our.
Yeah, we're throwing the acronyms around like they're, I go into an NRCS meeting and it's like,
Yeah.
I need a dictionary to figure out what thing they're talking about.
If that's bad, try FEMA.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know for Flora SAG, I mean, Bob, came and spoke to us, gosh, it was probably years ago now about that same process for the plants. And it's not something we've had the capacity to pick up and go anywhere with. And
Which is fine.
In part because it hasn't been clear exactly,
Yeah,
where was the value coming out of spending all that time?
Right, if you don't
the
see the
value's
value.
clearer, then it's more likely we'll prioritize
Yeah.
doing it.
well, and I think that's something we'll grapple with for this wildlife action plan is the connection between SGCN, the species level, and these landscape initiatives, and how do we make sure that they're aligned enough, or we're not missing, I don't know, that's a big question for me.
recall that meeting and when we started talking about that with Bob and Flag, it was like, how do we even prioritize, like, other
Yeah.
than just go alphabetically, like,
Yeah.
like prioritize, you know, is it species that are that sort of generalist or special? I remember there was quite a bit of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, with our 500 some species on our, just our S1 to S3 list, something
Mhm.
like that, it's a lot to work through all species by species. So
What's the interval on this process? Is it every 10 years or every?
Yep.
Yeah, it's every 10.
10. Seems like 2 by the time the next one comes around.
Yeah.
And back in the day, when we first got started, the SAGs would pretty much just create out of thin air the S ranks, the recommended S ranks. But nowadays, you actually have forms, and nature sure has a process for the S ranks. Is that not the case?
my understanding is they do have an S rank calculator process. That I don't have any direct experience with using it. I wish Aaron were here because
Yeah, Aaron
they
would
have
know.
definitely have the knowledge of it. But I think it often requires more data and more resolution of data than we actually
Than what we
have
actually
to
have.
be able to effectively use that process.
Yeah.
So then we have to sort of fall back on, and maybe other taxa groups, like maybe herbseed, do have that level of data. We've got fewer species, but
Yeah.
plants we certainly don't. So we have to use a
So
less data-rich process.
So is there a specific process that's going to be required for the S ranks, or is it really up to these groups to decide through this?
Well, in the past, it's relied on the SAGs really, and on their expertise, and it's varied from one taxonomic group to another based on data, so.
Yeah.
Unless people find flaws in that process or think that there's a better way. But
No,
it's not,
I'm not saying that at all.
yeah, I mean. I think it's what we want to do.
I do think that you want the expertise of the group rather than a mechanistic approach.
Yeah.
We're having brains, not just algorithms.
Yeah.
I remember Ted Murin came up with a whole sort of somewhat mechanistic approach. And then there were times when we had to sort of make a more qualitative final decision, you know.
But I think it was because of the Atlas data, right?
That we were able to do that,
You
right?
had so
We
much.
had data, yeah.
Well, not just data, but data that was collected in a very formalized. and
Standardized way.
Standardized way across everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Atlas, is that,
The first field season will be in 2028.
okay.
So start pulling it together in 2026, probably start getting a steering committee together, Mark.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good. I mean, it's funny because, we have the SAG group. And then, of course, you do when we did the first swig, it was the SAG group.
You mean the
plus
swap?
The swap. Yeah, the swap, sorry. So it's like all the same configurations of people just in different meetings, which is great because it's not
It's
like
Vermont.
it's Vermont. We're able to share all that information. So yes, I will be part of that.
Hold on, put your name down.
All right.
I wasn't planning on making it till the third Atlas. I didn't think I'd live that long. The only other thing, I guess, and I don't know if this is appropriate to talk about here, you can kind of make the call, but we got that email, I think yesterday from Becca about FPR's involvement in the Endangered Species Committee. And I have really no idea what she was talking about in that email, but I guess I'm wondering, maybe that's a conversation when we have a new person in Mark's role. I'm not really sure. That seemed like it was kind of like how the different parts of ANR interact. Well, Stephanie's not A&R, but how the different parts of state government interact with the ESC. So,
Yeah, that might be a conversation to have with Danny Fitzko.
okay,
Yeah, my sense was, and I'm not sure if this is correct,
yeah,
because I was trying to figure out what she meant by it, but
yeah.
that they may pick and choose more about attendance because,
Mhm.
not everything we do relates to
Yeah.
their work directly, so,
Mhm.
I can ask Becca or Danny and
Okay,
find out what they're wanting to do, and
okay, all right,
I wasn't clear either.
yeah, okay.
Certainly seems valuable. I'm reading between the lines as I did see it. Sounds like thinking about FPR not having a direct representative, but certainly as a major landholder with
Yeah.
relevance to many
Yes.
endangered
Right.
species, having their voice
Yeah.
somehow involved is valuable.
Yeah, I agree, but, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, given that we only meet 3 times a year, it doesn't seem that onerous of an ask, but anyway, we can get more info. I wasn't really quite sure. Stephanie, anything you want to see on the January agenda?
I don't have any ideas at this point in time. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you.
Okay,
In a week or so.
okay, and there will be
Right.
the standard, yeah, and there'll be the standard call for agenda items before
Yep.
the meeting anyway, so, yeah.
Thank
Stephanie,
you.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That relates to this group somewhat is, the findings of EEE encephalitis. I'm wondering
Yeah.
about, what implications you're seeing from that, in terms of, pesticide applications or anything like that, or if it's just too soon to know. I mean, is it ramping it up to a higher level of, closer to emergency level, or do we need to be watching that?
We are watching that. So we're
Yeah.
watching the detections in pools in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. I don't have any sense of at this point, like today, right now, that there's any ramping up of pesticide applications.
Yeah.
We have, just generally within our agency, and we're about to send out a notice to those that we regulate generally, that you should really be careful working in those counties where those detections have occurred in dawn and dusk, and that employees and people, and this is just a general message even for those in the room, to wear appropriate PPE when you are working outside. Because there's no treatment, there's no vaccine. And as we know, it can be deadly. So at this point, I'm unaware of any increase. Certainly we don't get usage reports from pesticide applicators on a weekly basis, to my knowledge. So I can't answer that question. And then whether or not there'll be any additional action, I can't answer that question either.
Okay.
So we just continue to monitor, and people should take personal precautions in their lives and in their work.
Thank you.
Yep.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot or anything.
No, that's okay. It's an opportunity to share.
Yeah.
This is big stuff. Yeah.
I hope is that we won't see it again, like that it's a result of all the rains and it's an unusual year, and my hope is we won't have it come back next year, but.
My understanding is the last detection was in 2015 in the state of Vermont specifically. I'm sure surrounding states, and I don't know for certain actually, but surrounding states may or may not have had detections more recently. But yeah.
We had a summer at the Audubon where we hardly had any mosquitoes out and about, but those little buggers have really, and they're the kamikaze ones too. They're not the big, they're like, and they're wicked.
I think it's the EDs.
The
The EDs, not the Anopheles.
Yeah.
I've always felt myself that if I'm just out generally, it's not particularly dangerous, but if you're anywhere near a horse farm.
Yeah.
Because it goes from birds to horses, and a horse, imagine the amount of blood filled with spiral particles on a horse, right?
The tail and the ears can only go so fast.
Right, so, you know, I don't really worry about my house is on a horse within 2 miles.
Point.
All right. I say we're adjourned.
Next meeting dates, just for a reminder.
It's a good call.
It's Tuesday, January 23rd and Tuesday, April 23rd.
Okay, no, got it.
Suspect we may have some additional plan permits just in terms of other agenda.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
At this point.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
I guess if you want to copy Roz and I on whatever you jotted down for notes,